so often, whenever we're going for a submission or an attack, we'll start the submission or attack might lie just slightly beyond what's within our own foundation. And so when we go and attack that which is outside our own foundation, we have to give more of our foundation, our resources to do it. And that gives the opponent more to work with against us. So if, like on the choke we're working on tonight, rather than cupping the neck and driving the shoulder in, well, as you're driving the shoulder in, you're not driving your foundation into them. You're changing the way the parts relate to the whole. You're actually, by the way you're contorting your body, you're bringing the knuckles into the shoulder. And you can do that by getting more centered rather than driving into the opponent. And that makes it much more difficult to deal with because now he's got to deal with all of you instead of a portion of you and a portion of you on him, right? And it makes it hard for him to roll you.
That specifically took me a second because it almost feels counterintuitive because you feel like you're pulling back almost.
Yes.
Because you're sinking down. So first instinct for me is to kind of stack them a little bit. And that's where you're saying you're giving them too much of your foundation. So when you come back, it kind of feels weird at first, but then once you realize how it's connecting and how you're pushing through them, it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
But at first go, it kind of throws you off.
It's also useful from like side control or something like that. If my body's completely on one side of their spine, if I've got the underhook and my head's here, it's lost me here. No. So if I've got my underhook and my head's underneath the chin, even though I'm off to one side of his body completely, it's still more controlling here than here. Because here, if he rolls, I go with him. Here, if he rolls, I stay. If he turns in, he hits all of me. You see? So it's the same kind of concept, right? Okay.
So it's not like trying to sit on them, because that's like my famous move right there. I'm gonna sit on you.
Yeah, if you just when you sit on them, you give them your foundation.
Yeah,
so if they
exactly.
roll, it's like a house on a log, right?
Yeah.
The house rolls with the log. If they choose to roll, they can roll the house off.
Yeah.
Now, so that's an interesting concept. The closer you get in, the more difficulty you might have dealing with the situation. So what you want to look at though is everything happens through a connection. And so if you're trying to make something happen, you have to be connected somehow to make anything happen. Otherwise, it's all theory. Nothing's actually taking place. And so, so it's through those connections that things will start to work or not work. And one of the things you want to look at as you're using those connections is how do I use my connections to uproot, right, the opponent? So wherever you're touching, can I make that connection be uprooting for them and root me into my own foundation? Now, I also want my connections to be moving them perpendicular to their line of base. As long as my connections are moving them perpendicular to their line of base, then it's going to be off balancing for them. They're constantly going to be having to find their foundation. It makes it hard for them to take advantage of the situation. So strong attack comes from strong foundation. If they don't have a strong foundation, well, their attacks are weak. So the other thing to pay attention to is the weight distribution. As you're moving back and forth, the weight has to shift from one foot to the other. And as the weight's over one foot, that foot's pinned by their own weight. And so you want to move in cooperation with that. And if as that foot becomes more pinned, the other foot becomes more movable, right? So you can connect to that to move it to your advantage, however, from there. So those are some vague tips. Another thing on the single legs is a lot of times there's a tendency on a single leg for the guy to really sling. And the more the more you go to sling with a single leg, the more it can be used against you, right? So it'll be turned into another sweep or something else. So that's why when we're talking about bringing the elbows in, putting the weight back in the heels, and have it almost like that conveyor belt. So it's going through your center mass and like straight down to the ground. So I'm not slinging them around.
And that was that first variation of pulling that knee all the way in.
Yeah, because
if we're starting from knees, but then if it was so solid and so posted, letting that be posted and work my way around.
Yeah. Cool. Let's clean mats.